Blank faces. I'm not sure I am safe right now, but I need to get my warning out. About a month ago, I got a new game on Steam. It's called Occlude, and it is amazing. The atmosphere and simple gameplay was just what I needed to start a new obsession. It's a game of solitaire with a horror skin, and rotating rules makes the game easy to play but hard to master. Plus, the story is keeping me wanting more. The solitaire setup is a bit different than what I grew up with, but easy enough to understand. Honestly, I can't recommend it enough. And I can't believe I am about to write this. But just don't try to fully recreate the game in real life. I work in security, and my job is pretty easy. The vast majority of my job is being aware and able to respond to incidents and to do regular building checks. Pretty much, I had a lot of time to myself, and the hardest parts of my job were finding things to keep me awake during the night shifts. We rotate through a few different buildings, and some of them don't have any cell service or internet ran to the building. Those are the shifts that are hardest to stay awake and aware. I'm always looking for analog ways to pass the time. The type of solitaire game in Occlude was just different enough, and my obsession with the game was ever present that I thought I would kill a night playing. I packed my bag for work and added a deck of cards. I thought about the setup in the video game and decided to go all in on the idea of making it look like it came out of the game. I pulled 4 half-dollar coins out of the collection my grandfather gave me. They were nothing special, just $half with Kennedy on the front, minted in the early 70s. I just thought they would look closer to the video game rather than any other coins I had around. I came up with the idea of taking a picture of the setup and posting it to my Instagram. Hopefully I could find some other people that liked the game and might give me a few hints without ruining the mysteries in the rule sets. I got to work and chatted with the day shift people, learning it was a quiet day so the night should be even more dead. I took over the office I usually claimed and cleared off the desk completely to give myself room. Before I allowed myself to even pull out the cards, I did my initial checks, radioed into my boss, and yelled at my friend and co-worker, Dan, who was in another office a few doors down from mine. After all that, I pulled out my journal. My therapist had me working on some homework after my divorce. I wrote until I couldn't stand the emotional work anymore, and I closed the journal and pushed it to the far side of the desk. I broke out the cards and coins, then lost myself setting things up just like the game. Seriously? The question scared the crap out of me, and I jumped in my seat. When I looked up, Dan stood in the doorway. Swallowing my heart back down my throat, I cursed. "You asshole! Maybe some warning next time?" Dan smirked. "If you can't notice me standing in the door for a good minute and get mad at me for speaking up, I have no idea what you want as a warning." "I'm just going to cover you in bells," I answered. Looking at the clock, it was time for our second building check. Dan nodded as I stood up and we went and did our checks, then radioed in. I settled back in the office and finished the game setup. It looked pretty good, and I took a few photos. As I looked at the pictures, my mind latched onto the first move of the layout. I put my phone away and started playing. After what seemed like only a few minutes of me trying to figure my next move, I realized I had to reshuffle. In the game, this is a common thing, especially when you are trying to find the secret. I pulled all the cards in and shuffled. With my attention off the game, I noticed the time was later than I thought. What I thought was a few minutes was almost an hour. I got up quietly and made my way down to where Dan was set up. It was early for our check, but I wanted to get him back for startling me and wanted to get the check done early so I could go back to my game. I jumped into his doorway saying, "Pornography? That is not work appropriate," in a deep, gruff voice. Seeing him jump and cover the car magazine he was flipping, though, made me laugh. After the check and a chat with our boss, I went back to my game. I will never admit to being a smart man. I was fully aware that my ex is smarter than I am. I just was surprised at how hard this game seemed to be. Maybe it was just terrible luck, and maybe the rule of not letting myself take back a move was making it worse than I expected, but I couldn't finish a game. Most of the night wore on with me reshuffling and trying over and over while taking care of my job and giving Dan some crap here and there. I was enjoying the time despite not being able to finish. I finally got to a point I was sure I could finish off the table. I had to do my rounds around the building, but came back to the game with a bit of extra excitement. Dan was yelling from his office about a woman he dated a few weeks ago, and I had already heard the story before, so I wasn't paying much attention. I placed the last 3 cards feeling pretty good about myself. I leaned back in my chair, then the $50 caught my eye. 3 of the coins were shiny, like brand new, never been touched before. Or maybe like someone had sat here polishing them for an hour or 2. They were close to a mirror finish, and I was checking the reflection with my hand waving over them when I noticed the last coin. The last of the 4 coins had the normal patina of a coin that was in use and handled for decades. What caught my eye was the relief of Kennedy on the front was altered. The hair was the same as I remembered, but Kennedy's face was replaced with a skull. I froze looking at the coin. My brain stopped, and I just stared. After a few minutes, I blinked and started to think again. I picked up the coin and looked at it closer. Nothing was wrong except that there was a skull in place of John F. Kennedy's face. I dropped the coin on the desk. I had a realization that all the coins I placed before was showing tails. The shiny coins still showed tails. I picked one of them up and they were normal except for being very shiny. I finally had a rational thought. Dan was messing with me. I didn't think he was into video games, but I know I talked about this one before. I even showed it to him on my Steam Deck. That must be it. The term even floated up out of my brain. Hobo nickels with a term of coins changed to something different. My grandfather told me about an actual nickel he saw with the face of a Native American molded into the metal. I picked up the skull $50 again, and I saw it in a whole new light. Dude, you totally got me on that one. I called out to Dan. Where did you get this one with the skull? What are you talking about? Was his answer. Then I could hear him get up and walk down the hallway. I put the coin down on the desk and looked closer. Dan stopped in the doorway again, and I looked up, about to tell him I was going to steal it when my words caught in my throat. Dan's face was gone. It's hard to explain. I couldn't see any details on his face, and it was blurry with a bit of glow or highlight, like something wanted to draw my eyes to the change. I didn't understand, but I couldn't look away. Hey, you okay? Dan asked. You look like you are going to puke or pass out. He stepped into the room and I panicked. I threw my hand out towards him while covering my face with the other. In a moment of uncharacteristic quick thinking, I said, "Just feeling sick all of a sudden." He backed off quickly. "You need to go home, or can you get through the last couple of hours? I'll take care of the rest of the checks either way." Keeping my eyes down to the desk, I didn't look back up. "Yeah, I think I can make it. Thank you for covering." "No problem. Just let me know if I can do anything to help you." Dan hesitated, then moved back into the hallway when I didn't respond. I got up and rushed to the bathroom. I was weirded out and felt a bit sick to my stomach, so I went and washed my face, then looked into the mirror, not realizing that it could be a bad idea. I looked totally normal, besides a few shades paler and a crazy look to my wide eyes. After a few minutes, I decided I wasn't going to throw up and made my way back to my office. I shoved everything in my bag and stared at the desk wood grain shading my eyes from the door and just trying to understand what was happening. Time just passed as my head spun. Before I knew it, our shift was over and the day shift was coming in. I realized that I was terrified of what else could happen. Haley, my normal shift relief, found me staring at the desk. I looked up and saw the bright bracelets she loved to wear on her arms. I looked up higher, and a blank, blurry, glowing space stared back at me. Dan called out to her before she could say anything. "Our big guy is feeling sick. Don't get too close just in case." He turned his blank face towards me and continued, "Go home, man. I will Lysol the room so no one gets anything. You okay to drive?" I mumbled that I would be okay and a thank you for the help. I grabbed my bag and walked quickly out of the building and to my car. I avoided looking at anyone in the parking lot and just drove home. Every billboard that should have had a face was the same highlighted blank space. When I pulled into my garage, I sat there and realized I was silently crying when I noticed the wet tears hitting my lap. I thought Haley's bright green eyes were beautiful, and I got excited to see when she got a new lipstick color. That was a couple weeks ago. Besides the feeling of loss and having a hard time finding other ways to recognize people, I am actually coming to terms with my new normal. The real problem for me started 2 nights ago. I was just about to fall asleep when I noticed a blurry patch of darkness in my closet. I jumped up and flipped on the lights but couldn't find anything out of place or unusual. I slept with the lights on. Yesterday, I noticed a couple other patches of blurry darkness in deep shadows and couldn't figure out what they were. Last night I tried again to sleep in the dark, but this time I noticed 3 blurry spots. I stared until one of them started to nod.